Okay, now we're going to talk about inline tokens. Now, I love this feature. This is one of my favorite new features of Backup 1.3, and of course, it also comes into CheckDB 1.0 as well. What this allows you to do is it allows you to have dynamic file names and path names for your backups, and of course, your restores as well. So let's take a look at this. I've got backup statement get right here, which is the procedure that actually creates the backup statements for me. So I'm just going to use that to test a few things here. You can see I've got a full path of C:\SQL backups. We can come in here to the path table, and we can see that my path is C:\SQL backups. And when I run this, that's what I get. A full path right there, or a full path right there. Now, that's usually where backup products stop, right? You don't really have a lot of control over your backup path. But here, we can do a lot of really cool things. So now let's send that to SQL backups, and let's append the server name to it. So you just say %server %. Don't forget the ending \. There we go. And now when we run this, we are going to get, I passed it up, there we are, the full path of SQL backups Bindicon, which is the name of my box, right? So we can even go further than that. We can tack on the database name, DB name, right there. Don't forget your ending \. And then when I do this, and there is my full path right there with the database name minion that I passed in right there. So you can see that we've got some really cool stuff in here. Let's see, we could also put in the date if I wanted to. Don't forget your \. There we go. And now when I put this in here, now I've got the date appended to it as well. So now let's take a look at something else. Now we can mix these, right? I mean, we've already got it mixed right there. We've got SQL backups, but let's go ahead and say archive. So let's do archive \, and then the date, because maybe we want to have a monthly archive or something, right? So now when we run this, now I've got database name, archive, and then the date itself. So you can see this is pretty flexible. Let's go ahead and take a look at the file name as well, because the file name's really got some cool stuff in there. So right now, we are using database name, server label, which comes from this column over here, backup type, and ordinal of number of files. So let's take a look at what that's giving us. We've already got it over here. So full file name here, we'll just go with the file name right there. So we've got minion, Sean's label, full 1 of 6.back. So there's that ordinal right there. There's the 1 of 6, right? We could do 1 out of 6. 1 out of 6 if we wanted to. And then when I come over here and run this guy, there we go, if I can find it right there, 1 out of 6. Or you could say, you could put in an underscore right here if you wanted to make it a little bit easier for you to read if you're an underscore kind of guy. There we go. And file name right there, underscore 1 out of 6, right? So the server label over here, if you don't understand what the server label is, then go look at the server label video for Minion Backup. So right now we'll say my label, and then that comes right in here with my label. Now, you can arrange these guys in any order you want. And as a matter of fact, let's take a look at one more of these and how it works. There is one called SOSL. So I'm going to replace server label with SOSL. And what that means is server or server label. So what that means is I'm either going to put the server name in the file name, or I'm going to put the server label. So if server label is not null, then it'll use server label. If it is null, then it'll use the server. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So right now I've got my label, so it's not null. There we go. And now let's take a look at this. Where is it? Right there. And it's got my label right there. But now, if I make this null, in fact, I'll steal the null from here. There we go. And I run this again. Where is it? File name. Right there. Now I've got BindyCon in there instead. And I can do that in the path as well, right? Instead of server, you could probably put SOSL, and that's a little bit closer to what you wanted, because if you want to use a server label, then you don't want the server name as well, right? You want to be able to use the label that you put in there. So you can put in server or server label. Now, and so where is it? Here it is. So here, I'll show you that one last thing right here. Backup path right there. BindyCon in the path, and then when I put in my label, new label, then now you can see, I think you can see, there we go. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take a look at the table itself, because I want you to know what parameters are even available. So when we come down here, we've got the minion dbmaint inline tokens table. And if we take a look at that, then you can see the names of the tokens that are available. So here's server, here's db name. We've used all of these, right? Here is SOSL. Let's see, what else do we have here? Here's server extension, cert name. So all of these guys you can use. Now some of these you can't use everywhere, right? You can only use cert name inside of a cert backup sort of thing, right? And here we give you the definition of it and whether or not it's active, right? You can make your own comments for things. But here we give you a definition of all of these and tell you what to expect from it. So here's a really good example of extending this, right? So you can extend this. We give you the parse method as well, so you can see exactly how we do this. And if you want to change how it's done, you can come in here and change how it's done. So a really good example of how that would happen is, let's say for instance, right? So right now, if there is an instance, if you're on a default instance, it won't return anything. So it simply just won't return anything. It returns a blank string. But you could come in here and return the word default if it didn't have an instance name, right? So you can do anything you want. Now, I suggest that you don't change any of the system values, right? We've got these is custom equals false. And this means that these guys are system parameters. But you notice down here we've got one that says is custom equals true. And this is one that was created by a user. Just so happens the user was me. And we called it the day name full. So what that does is that returns the full day name, right? Now, it's a little bit different when you have is custom. Because, let's go ahead and take a look at this. So let's go day name full. Here, I'm just going to copy that actually. So now I have the day name full, and I'm going to slide that in to my path. So I'm going to say archive day name full, right? But I haven't put in any of the parameter markers yet. So you would think that you would surround this with percents like you do the other variables, but you don't. You surround it with pipes to denote that it's custom. And the reason I did that is because when you've got a whole bunch of these, when you've got a whole bunch of servers and a whole bunch of these guys, you may want to be able to check whether or not you're using any custom parameters anywhere, or if you've got a custom parameter that's being used somewhere. Maybe you've got a team of DBAs and they all had them named slightly differently, and you want to unify them, right? So now you can come in and you can check very easily across all the tables whether or not you're using any custom parameters, and you can get a list of the custom parameters that you're using, and it's very simple because now they're denoted with a pipe instead of with a %. So I did that so that it would denote that they're custom inside the column itself, and I think it's ultimately going to make it a lot easier for you to be able to discern whether or not these are custom variables. And if you want to do a mass search across a lot of servers, it's going to be a lot easier to find where custom variables are being used than if you had to search the table for every single value in there. I don't think that would be a good way to do it at all. So when you do these custom variables here, make sure that you denote them with pipes instead of with the %. So now when I come back here, there we go. Now I should get the full day name in my backup path. There we go. Tuesday, right? So that is one custom parameter. That's one custom parameter that I've created. So to wrap it up, there are a lot of columns that support inline tokens. The inline tokens themselves are a great way for you to build the path names and the file names that you want. Not only that, but you can build your own. You can put anything in here you want. The only two requirements for creating your own parameters are this. Number one, don't put the select statement in there. When you write your select statement, when you figure out your parameter and you write the select statement, make sure you leave the select out of it. So just like this, right? This is a statement that will actually evaluate, right? So if I put in select in front of here, oops, I didn't highlight it all. There we go. I get Tuesday back. So that's all you need. If you do a query from a table, it can only return one value, of course, because you're setting a variable, right? So it can only return one value. And whenever you get your query worked out, just take the select off of it and you'll be golden. The second one is, you notice in here that I am using @execution date time. That's a variable inside the routine itself, right? So I can use these guys, @execution variable and @db name. I can use these guys @backup type, but you can't. The way it is right now is if it's an internal one, then these variables can be used, but if it's an external one or a custom one, then you can only use functions and variables, global variables that are within SQL itself. So those are the only three restrictions, right? It can only bring back one column and one value. You can only use internal system SQL Server stuff, right? Functions and variables. And don't put the select statement. Don't put the word select in there. Because you notice here for AG name, I'm actually running a query here. If I go home, there we go. I'm actually running a query with a left outer join and all that, but I don't have the select statement on there, right? Okay, so there you go. That is inline functions, or inline tokens, sorry. And you can arrange these guys any way you want and mix and match them with hard-coded data. And I love this feature. Let me know what you think.